We all know we are allowed to buy people in charge. The phone rings. It's been a long day, and you're not in the mood to talk. You glance over at your child playing on your phone, immersed in a game. The person calling is someone you'd rather avoid, someone whose conversation will feel more like an obligation than anything else. You look at your child, who's just learned to navigate basic conversations, and with a calm voice, you say, "Tell them I'm not here." Without hesitation, your child answers the call, relays the message, and hangs up. It's harmless, right? Just a small white lie. Nothing too serious. At 4 years old, he's so innocent, with wide eyes filled with curiosity and trust. He repeats what you say without questioning it, and you might not even think twice about the moment. Life goes on, and it feels like just another mundane event in the day. But years pass. Your child grows older, smarter, and more observant. He begins to understand the world more clearly, or at least tries to. You ask him about his day at school, and one day, he confidently tells you. It was great. There's a pause as you watch him. Something about his demeanor feels off, but you brush it aside, until the school calls. Your child wasn't at school today, the voice on the other end says. You feel a chill run down your spine. You confront him, demanding to know why he lied. There's a shift in the air as he looks at you with a gaze far too knowing for his years. "I learned it from you," he says without hesitation, the words hitting harder than you could have anticipated. The innocence in his voice stings. You realize that something you once dismissed as harmless, a small lie, just to make life easier, has planted a seed. It's not just about skipping school or dodging a conversation anymore. It's about something much deeper. In that moment, as his words sink in, you're forced to confront a harsh reality. The world we live in is filled with corruption, dishonesty, and manipulation. And, unknowingly, you've started to pass that legacy on to the next generation. We tell ourselves that small lies don't matter, that bending the truth to avoid discomfort is harmless. But children, with their bright eyes and unfiltered view of the world, absorb everything like sponges. Your lie that day, "Tell them I'm not here," was more than a single moment. It was the start of something. Every time you chose convenience over honesty, every time you twisted the truth to make your life easier, you were teaching your child. You were driving lies into them, showing them that in this world, it's sometimes okay to be dishonest. It's a terrifying reflection on the human condition. We all grow up learning that those in power, whether in families, schools, workplaces, or governments, often bend the truth. It's ingrained in us that those with influence have the privilege to manipulate situations in their favor. And soon, we start to believe that maybe it's not so bad to follow their lead. We may not even realize we're doing it. But over time, the small lies we tell, the half-truths we speak to avoid confrontation, all pile up, and they shape the people around us. We buy the silence, the avoidance, the deception, and soon, it's the norm. In the eyes of a child, if their parent, the person they trust most in the world, tells a lie, it must be acceptable, even necessary. As your child continues to grow, you might see this pattern unfold in more subtle ways. The excuses, the justifications, they start to mirror your own. But unlike you, your child doesn't yet understand the complexity of the world. They don't see the gray areas that you've learned to navigate. To them, it's black and white, right and wrong. So, when they lie, it feels no different from what they've seen you do. We are left, then, in a cycle of corruption, not just in the wider world but in our homes, in the relationships that matter most. We justify dishonesty in small doses, unaware of how deeply those seeds are being planted, not just in ourselves but in those who look up to us. This story isn't just about a parent and a child, though. It's about the systems we create, the societal norms we accept, and the ways in which power allows those in charge to manipulate and deceive. We are taught from a young age that people in positions of authority often get away with things the rest of us can't. And in our own small ways, we perpetuate that cycle. The real tragedy, though, is in the realization. By the time you see it, by the time your child looks you in the eyes and says, "I learned it from you," it's already too late to undo what's been done. You can't take back the lessons that were learned in the quiet moments, in the small interactions you never thought twice about. But what you can do is acknowledge the truth. You can begin to break the cycle by being honest, not just with your child but with yourself. In this corrupt world, it's easy to fall into the trap of convenience, to believe that small lies are harmless. But the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, is the only way to prevent the next generation from inheriting the worst parts of our world. We are all allowed to buy people in charge. In one way or another, we buy into the idea that those with power can shape the truth. And in doing so, we pass that belief down to our children. But just because we're allowed doesn't mean we should. The choice is ours, every day, in every interaction, to teach something better. The only question is whether we will.